everybody. And now let's talk automation.
Welcome everyone to the third Thursday. A small change of agenda today where I will be asking the questions. So we have got family Roloff, I should say that. And we've also got Anthony James as well, 3 experts in personal branding. So I can't wait to get started with the questions, and I'll move at a pace here as well, folks. So we'll jump in a second, but just as ever, please remember to let us know where you're coming from. Put that in the messages so we can say hi. And if you've got any questions as well, pop those in, and hopefully to goodness we can get asking them at the same time. So today's agenda, how personal brands are transforming sales, marketing, and more. And we have 3 very large personal brands. I mean that in the most wonderful sense as opposed to the size sense. So let's see where we get to. Emma, how am I doing so far? You're probably looking on.
Good. You remembered to tell everybody to join in, but you did forget to say happy third Thursday. So I've got to give you that little criticism there. So happy third Thursday, everybody. I'm excited to let Kieran take the driver's seat today. And it's always fun to have my husband along for the journey instead of just in the comments saying that he's joining from hometown USA. We get to be on the screen together today. So.
And now everybody knows what he looks like as well. And oddly enough, I've been chatting with him for a year, and I know what he looks like now at the same time. Right, let's run around the room here. Usual one, quick introduction. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. James, why don't we start with you, because you're the first person that we talked, and then we move to Anthony, and then over to Emma.
Yeah, so I'm James Roloff. I am also Emma's husband. So that's where the name comes from. I'm a digital sales consultant. So I help businesses implement digital sales strategies. So working with sales and marketing teams, help them improve their results online through digital marketing. My background's actually in website design. So our family owned a website design company. So I was part of that for 8 years. And now I'm off on my own helping consult clients.
Fantastic. I like the way you categorized yourself as 2 things, both as professional and as husband there as well.
I don't like about that. So it's an important thing.
It's where the last name came from. He had to establish that.
Not like brothers
to begin with.
That's it. For everybody looking at the names going, oh, I wonder. Now they know. Anthony, sir, if you don't mind, obviously not family Roloff unless you want adopted in the middle of the show. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself? Sorry.
Yeah, my name is Anthony Jones, and I'm not related to Emma or James, but glad to be here today. Yeah, so I'm the owner of Anthony Jones Consulting. I help individuals, business owners, brands build their personal brands on LinkedIn to generate more leads and clients for their business. I spent actually 20 years in the nonprofit sector where I worked for Ducks Unlimited. There I had an opportunity to lead a digital team responsible for all digital channels, including social media, which is kind of where I got started on LinkedIn and how I got here today.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Wife of James, then. Would you mind doing an introduction for all those who do know you and for those folks who are tuning in for the first time?
Of course. So I am the director of sales with a company called EIS, and we help insurance companies manage core transformations. And I do not have my own business. I am not a consultant in this space, but I'm going to be speaking from the voice of somebody who's built a brand to kind of use that as a vehicle to get my message out from a sales standpoint. And kind of talking about how I use those tools to change up how I sell and why it's so important to how I do my job.
Fantastic. And massive following. And did I see you're now on LinkedIn's Accelerator as well as a result of all that work?
I am. This week, the LinkedIn Accelerator program started, and it's a cohort of 120 people focused on innovation and technology. And I'm focusing on driving digital literacy through my content on LinkedIn to help people understand how to be more effective with their transformations.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, that's a damned hard program to get onto. So not only will you get the secrets of the work done so far, but hopefully that will come out in the content afterwards. And I recommend everybody follows everybody on this panel as well and follow each other in the audience. Anthony, if you don't mind, I'm going to come to you first, sir. Non-Roloff member in addition to myself here. Would you mind telling us, why did you go about building a personal brand in the first place? And how does that help you in sales and marketing?
Yeah. So I never woke up one day and said, I'm going to build a personal brand on LinkedIn. I really built my personal brand by accident. Like 5 or 6 years ago, LinkedIn was coming onto our radar as one of the social networks we needed to be more active on at Ducks Unlimited. And as the person over all social media, that was the one channel that I didn't have a whole lot of experience with outside of using it to hire talent for our team. So I just started experimenting. I started posting content. I had no clue what I was doing. The term personal brand wasn't even in my head. But over the course of a couple of years and staying consistent and putting out content, I was able to grow my network. And then a couple of years ago, out of the blue, I had people start reaching out to me asking for help with their LinkedIn profile. A lot of that was coming in during the wake of COVID. Some people were losing jobs or they just had spare time, and they saw me as a person who was an expert on LinkedIn. So that actually turned into a side business where I was helping others for about a year and a half. And then that side business had gained enough momentum in November of last year. I decided to take the leap, start my own company. And that never would have happened if I had not started posting content and building my online brand. And what I've learned is like the power of inbound marketing through your content is a game changer for businesses, especially small businesses like myself, where most of my customers today come from inbound leads, meaning they're reaching out, contacting me because of the content that they're seeing on LinkedIn. And for any business, large or small, when budgets get tight, marketing budgets get slashed, when there's talk of recession, when you have customers reaching out to you, as opposed to you having to spend a ton of money reaching out to them, it can be a game changer.
Wow. Interesting, because I'm going to pick up on a couple of terms there as well, but I'm going to get James maybe to reference them. For me, you mentioned a couple of things. We'll see these threads of logic, as I call them, throughout the talk. Content, number one, and then consistency, number two. We'll hear that quite a lot from the speakers. James, over to yourself then. We hear this term again, personal brand. Why did you start building a personal brand, and what has it done for you in terms of sales and marketing and getting access to your customer base?
Yeah, so I guess kind of my life story here. I was one of those nerdy kids that back in middle school was building their own website, setting up like video game servers, building online communities, that kind of thing. So I've been doing website stuff and online marketing since 2001. But then fast forward to after I graduated high school, I joined our family's web design company. And that web design company was part of a print company too, a commercial printing company. And what I found was that the sales strategy that was working for the print side of the business was not working well for the website design side of the business. Mostly because the print side was a lot more of a commoditized sale. It was quick, repeatable, it was spec'd out. Here's what you ordered, here's what you're getting sale, where a website design is much more of a longer term process. You're talking about a 1 to 2 year sales cycle. It's very, very high trust. It's not a low trust, quick transaction. And so I need to find a way to build relationships with my buyers over a long period of time that I could, kind of have a sustained growth engine from. And like Anthony said too, a big part of that was building inbound leads and not relying strictly on cold calling and things like that too. So I started doing my personal branding really to focus on that educating side of being a personal, thought leader or expert in my industry, so that when people were looking to get help with the website or with digital marketing, they knew that I was a resource they could reach out to. So that was really the genesis of it. And then over time, as I built out a sales team, it was kind of helping my sales reps build that same process and get inbound leads that way too.
Fantastic. And I'm going to lean into that because I have to say, like, you and I have known each other now for about 18 months. If I look at thought leader, which is what James mentioned a moment ago, and high trust in the personal brand, whilst you're not selling directly to clients, you're selling for someone else, you have built that. So tell us a little bit about why and how you started to build your personal brand, and how are you using that brand to help the company that you're now working for, any of the companies in the past?
Yeah. So earlier in the COVID timeframe, I always joke, and now you guys are all getting my secret weapon, but I have a in-house sales and marketing consultant who lives with me. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, I've always been very, very educational based in my sales style. And so when I was meeting with people in person, that meant a lot of lunch and learns and focused conversations where I could help educate my customers. And suddenly all of that came to like a very screeching halt. And so James and I were sitting around and we were talking, and I said, I don't want to be one of those salespeople that's picking up the call or picking up the phone and calling people with like the message of like, oh my gosh, it's unprecedented times. Let me tell you how I can help you. And his suggestion to me was like, you love speaking. Why don't you do video? And my initial thought was like, does anybody watch video about digital transformation? Like, is that a thing? And the very sage advice that I got was, well, why don't you try it and see? And so then about, I think it was April of 2020, I started the interview series that I did that actually is part of how we got connected, Kieran. And then through that interview series, found out kind of what I liked to do, what my style was going to look like from a social selling standpoint, and really started to kind of build out more of a strategy surrounding that. Now it includes things like this show, and for anybody that follows me, TikToks, and my own YouTube channel that's got another interview series. And it's really turned into something that not only do I enjoy doing, but it's made me a lot better at my job. And so when it comes down to, how does it benefit me from the sales cycle standpoint, and how does it help the companies? I mean, the obvious side of it is it's exposure, and it gets people to understand who I am and what I do. It helps my customers know who I am, or my prospects know who I am before I sit down for that first meeting, because I'm pretty authentically who I am. And then on the flip side, like I mentioned, this idea that it helps me be better at my job, because I'm constantly thinking about what are the problems that my customers are facing, talking through those and kind of refining that message so that when I sit down in a room and I'm talking to executives, I've had the opportunity to have that conversation 50 times already, because I've been able to do it through direct messages or through video and comments in my content.
Fantastic, because we're going to delve in a little bit, and later on, not only will we come to husband Roloff, but we'll come to that weapon Roloff as well. I love that. I like that description. Anthony, going to swap the question a little bit. You're obviously working for clients here, and I'm going to bring in a question from Ryan Wakefield, who's asked online in the comments. How do your clients, or how do you recommend your clients go about building a personal brand? Is it blogs? Is it video? Is it, as Emma's describing, content? How do you find your style? I'm kind of looking for a lot of different answers in one question, please.
Got it. So the short answer is, like, there's three things that I would recommend. One, pick a platform, the platform that makes the most sense to you based on your business. For a lot of folks, including me, that's LinkedIn. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are building out a content strategy, figuring out what it is you want to be known for on LinkedIn, and building your strategy around that. And what I always encourage my clients to do, and what has enabled me to have the most success, is building a content strategy that shows who you are as an expert in your field, show your knowledge and so forth, but also show who you are as an authentic person, like showing your personality, because people connect with people, people buy from people, people hire from people that they know, like, and trust. So it's building that content strategy to build that know, like, and trust factor, and show your expertise at the same time. So building out the content is one. The second thing that you really need to be focused on is supporting the larger conversation on LinkedIn. If you show up with the one goal of posting content and making it all about you and your stuff and your goals and your sales, you'll fail. So you need to be proactive and go out on a daily basis and support others. And it's as simple as leaving comments on prospective clients, people that you want to work with, leaving comments on others in your space, other creators. And as creators, we all remember the names and the faces of those who support us. So giving that back, serving others instead of just coming to serve yourself. And really the third piece of that, building your personal brand is growing your network. And as I mentioned, if you're putting out good content, if you are supporting that larger conversation and other people's posts, you're going to get inbound connection requests. People are going to naturally want to follow you, but you need to be proactive and send out those connection requests yourself, because, at the end of the day, growing your network is going to benefit you in a lot of different ways. So you need to be strategic and intentional. And really, that's the other thing, is when you go to LinkedIn, don't just go and get lost in the news feed. Go there with a purpose. If you have limited time, limited resources, say, okay, today I'm going to go in, I'm going to leave five comments, make one post, and then go about your day. so that you don't get sucked into that to the time warp or go down that rabbit hole of getting lost in the news feed. So those are really the three things that I encourage my clients, my clients to do.
And James, what about yourself there? And probably a couple of things here as well. How do you get your clients to build personal brands? How do you get them to identify the content that works? And I notice you as someone who's got a personal brand, do comment on LinkedIn. Is that your only channel? And I notice you've got a LinkedIn course as well that you sell. Do you sell other services as well?
Yeah. So I guess starting with where I'm at, I'm mostly on LinkedIn at this point, especially for like more of the business sales side of things. I'm on Twitter, but I'm mostly just me rambling about Bitcoin on there. So if you like Bitcoin, you can check that out too. But as far as what I do, as far as recommending personal brands, I think it really starts with knowing what you do and who you do it for. So I'm a big believer in understand your audience, knowing your buyer persona, knowing your buyer's journey, and kind of where you fit into that and how you provide value to your customers too. And again, I'm coming in from more of a sales perspective, not a marketing perspective, but I think marketing people can use this too. I'm a big fanboy of Donald Miller and StoryBrand. And I know that StoryBrand's really geared more towards businesses and business brands or organizational brands. But I think that everybody can get a lot from that book. The book's called StoryBrand. And think about how you as a personal brand, how you help guide your customers on their journey to be successful with whatever you're trying to make them do. That really helps you frame yourself, which will help you with your content, help you figure out your headlines and your about text on your page and all that kind of stuff too. So as far as like the getting started side of things, I would really think about what you do, who you do it for. And again, I recommend StoryBrand by Donald Miller. As far as content strategy goes, I use something I call the content matrix. So you can check it out on my website too. But it's pretty simple. Basically, the matrix. So across the top, you have your buyer personas. If you only have one buyer persona, you can just do one there. If you have multiple, you can do multiple. And then going down the rows, you have your stages of your buyer's journey. So problem awareness, solution research, decision-making. And then within each one of those boxes, then you just fill in for this buyer persona at this stage, what kind of content do they want to consume? So that's good for thinking about blog posts, for videos, webinars, downloadable guides, things like that too. So I just recommend my clients go through and fill out that matrix, and they can do it kind of like bigger picture, like bigger themes they're trying to do. Or if you're just trying to come up with ideas, on a daily basis, you can just go back to your matrix and say, I want to talk to this buyer persona at this stage in the buying process. What kind of information would be helpful for them too? And that's a big part of just my general philosophy, I guess, for digital marketing and for building your brand and digital sales is try and provide value, really educate people. Because nowadays people want to be educated. They don't want to be sold to. So if you can be that thought leader, that trusted expert that's providing value through education, through the content you produce, you're going to win those sales, not from like a slimy, like gotcha way, but more of I trust this person. And when it comes time to buy, I'm going to want to work with that person because they know what they're talking about in our industry too. So that's kind of the bigger picture thing. But again, I really start with what you do, who you do it for, and then using that content matrix to kind of fill out the missing pieces.
And James, in the content matrix, how do you come up with the ideas to fill that in? Where are you sourcing your material or content or topics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the best spot for me, I always say, is talking to your existing customers. So if you're on the sales side of things, you're already having those conversations on a regular basis, talking to prospects. What are the questions they're asking? At that initial, problem awareness stage, the solution research stage, and that decision-making stage. What questions are they asking? What information are they looking for? It's a really good spot to start. If you're on the marketing side, you should really be interviewing your customers too, and working with your sales team to do some actual customer research and some customer interviews. And kind of the same thing, just trying to really pick apart how they buy, why they buy, what they look for in vendors, things like that. And then using that as kind of your starting point for content too.
Okay, fantastic. And there was one interesting thing you said, and I'm going to bring you in if you don't mind. You mentioned customers don't want to be sold to. I know customers like to buy, and those two things are slightly different. And you mentioned they want to be educated. If you don't mind me describing your content as edutainment, which is education and entertaining content in the best sense of the word, why do you adopt that approach when we've heard two different approaches, one sales, one marketing, and now one personal brand?
So I can't take the full credit for that term edutainment. It actually comes from the CMO of the company that I work with. His name is Tony. And he has a show that's called Core Talk. Ed Halsey, Kieran, who does the show with him. And he kind of coined that term. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing. How exciting. Now I'm stealing it, Tony. So I think every piece of content, and I know both Anthony and James and I have had these conversations, in a sea of tons of information and tons of options for you to learn about any industry. I mean, literally anything. People are seeking things that not only offer them value and educate them, but they want to be entertained while they're doing it. They don't want to be talked at. They want to have a conversation. And if you're able to entertain someone and engage them, you're going to be able to start that dialogue and start that conversation. And so I would say my content, definitely not everything is like hysterical. I'm not that funny. I don't think that highly of myself, but I do have some that's more serious, but also I think authenticity is a part of that, like edutainment side of things as well. And so I mentioned this idea that I am who I am, and you see that with the kind of crappy rap music that comes out in the TikToks and all of the rest of it that comes along with who I am as a person. And the other side of why I am so drawn to that kind of content is I'm a firm believer that building a personal brand isn't for the faint of heart, and it's not easy. So you need to enjoy it while you're doing it. And so to me, that's a big part of why I've started kind of pulling in some of these other pieces that are entertaining. So, my explainer videos where I'm talking to myself, it's a little bit of an inside joke with anybody that follows me that I have these videos where I just talk to myself. And so like those types of things where, again, it's not taking yourself too seriously, and it's kind of bringing a different view to a more serious industry, at least in our sense of the world, Kieran. And, earlier you asked the question from Ryan of like, how do you find what works for you? You have to figure out what you enjoy doing, I think, is a part of figuring out how you go about content. And for me, that's video. For me, that's doing things that don't take myself too seriously. That's me pulling ideas from trends on TikTok because I enjoy consuming that kind of content too. And so I think it kind of all pulls together. And that's really why I'm so passionate about that idea of it, is that's what works for me. And for some people that might be writing. Kieran, I know you and I got connected from your long form articles where you pull people in and get quotes from people. You are an amazing writer. You like doing that. I would not enjoy sitting down and writing long form blog posts every single day. I know that there are people that are terrified by the idea of sitting down and making the explainer videos that I do. It works for me. It won't work for everybody, but that's the idea of a personal brand, is that you have to have that personal side to it.
I love that. And I suppose, Emma, just in our industry, digital transformation, change insurance, people sometimes imagine that's very, very serious. Did you feel it was a risk entertaining in what might be considered quite a, dare I say it, 9-minute, bland, serious industry?
So going back to James's original advice to me when I started all of this and started the interview series is, what's the worst that happens? You figure out that it doesn't work. And the internet moves so quickly. You might see something that as like a failure or a flop. Chances are nobody else was paying attention to it. And especially when you're first getting started, I mean, it's on the internet. You could go find it. The first video I made was so dreadfully awkward because I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't comfortable with the idea of it. And I think the second one, I brought our baby in because I was like, I need a prop so that I feel comfortable while I'm doing this video. But again, that's a blip in time. No one else is paying attention to that, and you get better over time. And so the idea of like experimenting and figuring out what works, no one's paying as much attention to you as you are to yourself. So experiment and figure out what you like and what works.
Fantastic. I really love that. Anthony, I'm going to come to you if you don't mind. You mentioned about going on LinkedIn. Brilliant platform. But how many platforms should you be on? Because technically, if you're in one, are all your eggs in one basket for audience members? Or is that a good thing? And number two is, what happened if LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow morning?
Yeah, great question. So my personal, the approach that I take in my business is I want to go really deep on two channels. and have a presence on the others. So the two channels for me that I'm putting most of my focus on for my business is primarily LinkedIn and TikTok. And obviously the reason for LinkedIn is pretty obvious, but TikTok, one of the things that I love about that platform is that you can get such fantastic organic reach on both TikTok and LinkedIn right now. Whereas on other platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they're so oversaturated with content that unless you're paying for ads, you're probably not going to be seen in any real level of scale. But you still have that organic reach potential on TikTok and on LinkedIn. So I'm going to go deep in those channels. I still have a presence on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but I don't have the time and resources to go deep in all of those channels. Larger companies, larger brands, obviously they have those resources. And I'd like to kind of touch on what Emma said about the video piece. Like I'm strategically picking LinkedIn and TikTok because video is what I'm going to double down on as sort of the core focus of my content over the next year for my business. And the reason is video is the fastest way to build your personal brand because it's much more impactful than just a text post or a photo. As Emma said, it is the most difficult to master because when you first start out, and I was in the same boat as Emma, I cringe when I look back at some of my earlier videos, but it's extremely awkward. I think I filmed the first 50 videos from inside of my car in a parking lot because I did not want another human to hear or see the level of awkwardness that was taking place. So if you're interested in, really building your brand, I would encourage you to lean into videos. And like the number one tip that I give people is for 30 days, take out your phone and film a short video every day, like 30 seconds to 1 minute. And it could be about anything. It could be about your day. It could be about your job, whatever. But do so with the intention of never posting it. Like this is for your eyes only. You can delete it when it's over. It's just a way to get practiced and get comfortable on camera. And it's just like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. And I will tell you the most useful app that I have ever downloaded as it relates to video production is called the Teleprompter for Video app. It's a free app for both Apple and Android, and you can actually load the script of your video right into the app. It will scroll the copy and even keep that copy near the lens of the camera, so you never lose eye contact with the audience. It feels really natural, and I promise you, it saves you tons of time trying to memorize your script or have a list of bullets kind of off to the side where you're looking back and forth. I've done all of that. So highly recommend that one, you get started with video, and two, take advantage of that app to make it a lot easier.
Fantastic. Good advice and a good app to download. And Ryan, thankfully, James has put in your content metrics in the messaging as well, which is be really useful for people. James, come to you momentarily. We're 2 minutes to go here, so still lots of time. I'm going to ask this question nicely. What's the point of all this from a sales point of view? What's the ROI from social selling? And you might need to explain that terms to people and from personal brand building. Yeah,
well, lucky for you guys, I got some research here from Forrester. And so they did a research on social selling. And what they found is that 78% of salespeople that did social selling outsold their peers that did not. So strictly from a sales standpoint, it gets you more sales, which gets you more money, and everyone's happy. But for me, it really comes down to sales is a lot about trust. You have to trust the person you're going to be buying from. And most sales activities in the digital world, as well as in the analog world, are all built around building that trust, building that rapport, and making someone want to buy from you, right? So social selling really enables you to just expand your reach with yourself because people buy from people. And if you can expand your reach online, you're going to build trust at scale. Versus having to go one by one and calling people and meeting with people. You can build that trust digitally at scale, which allows you to get a lot more opportunities in front of you too. So that's a big part of what I see is kind of building that trust at scale as like a big part of the ROI of social selling. Beyond that though, working down the sales funnel, you have a lot of opportunities too. So top of funnel, you have that problem awareness. You can educate people higher up in the funnel. Middle funnel, you can have that call to conversation. So not a call to action, but on social media, call to conversation, engage with people, start building that one-on-one relationship. And then bottom of funnel, let's say you have a prospect with an active deal out in front of them right now and trying to kind of work that and get to the finish line. You can nurture that deal so much better with social selling because they're going to keep seeing your name over and over and over again and seeing you providing value, seeing you engage with people like them, other prospects online. And that's going to help build that trust too. So there's a lot of opportunities from a sales perspective. Well, the ROI isn't always super, clear cut like a paid ad might be. There's a lot of ways you can attribute social selling to close deals too.
Fantastic. Alrighty, we're nearly up on time, and Emma will shout at me here because now that I'm running it, we're running over. But there's too much good content here to end just like that. Why don't we go around the room, 60 seconds each, before I wrap today's Third Thursday with your best piece of personal branding advice or the thing that you learned most of the last numbers of years. Emma, why don't we begin with you, and then we'll come to Anthony, and then we'll finish with James.
My message to people is always that consistency will win out over perfection. And again, there are times where I've had posts that have typos. And of course, those are like the ones that always get attention. But again, I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect. I show up every day though. And that builds, going back to what James said, that builds the trust that I am somebody that's actually here to help people learn about my industry and what I do. And I'm truly passionate about that from the education side. But again, showing up every day is going to show that consistency and that you're trustworthy. And you don't have to be perfect to be trustworthy. And nobody expects you to be perfect to buy from you, but they want you to be there when they need you.
That plays on the authenticity, being yourself. I really love that. I think that's what people get from you every time, Emma. Anthony, your best tip.
Yeah, Emma stole one of my best ones right there, but she was spot on with that. But no, I would say the biggest tip is just get started and don't overthink it. So many people, especially on LinkedIn, overthink their content to the point where it's paralysis and they feel overwhelmed. And when we feel overwhelmed, we do nothing. And that's kind of where imposter syndrome can come in. And like I suffered from that for years. Like, even though at one point I had 15 plus years of experience in fundraising and digital marketing, I felt like, why would anyone want to hear what I have to say on LinkedIn? Like, I didn't feel like I was an expert. But once I started posting and again, getting better as you do it, and to Emma's point, staying consistent, you start to kind of find that flow. You gain the confidence that you need. And then that other part of just staying consistent. And I really love what James said, and that is leading your content with value. If you're showing up, if you're helping others through your content, you're going to build that brand and you will benefit from your personal brand in ways that you probably can't even imagine right now.
Fantastic. Someone once called it, I think, paralysis from overanalysis.
Yeah.
James, best piece of advice.
Yeah. So mine is, I use this kind of my digital selling strategy in general, is really to be that favorite teacher. So if you think back to high school, middle school, college, what have you, everyone had that favorite teacher that was super engaging. You might not even like the subject itself, but that teacher just made the subject really good. They obviously didn't teach out of the textbook. They made it exciting. They made it fun. And you learned a lot from it too, right? Because they were the favorite teacher that everyone wanted to have their class. So I would say go back, think of those favorite teachers you had back in school, and be that favorite teacher for your industry. Be that person that people want to learn from your industry and make it fun. And people want to work with you then.
I love that. There's a lot of ex-teachers in the room. Emma, I know you and both I are ex-teachers as well. I wonder if there's something to do with that. So look, thank you, all three of you. Emma can critique me afterwards. That's fine. You can be a teacher as to how I'm meant to do this next time. But look, really appreciate it. Let's summarize and just wrap around the room before we go. I heard a lot of different things. Turning up is one, not worrying too much about what you put out there at the beginning, and probably not worrying too much about what you do now. Keeping that consistency, being your authentic you. Emma, I think you mentioned a couple of times just testing different media, testing what works for you. And then I love what you're saying there at the end, James. Find someone that, you remember, but obviously be your authentic self and be that best person of you. And James, or Anthony, sorry, why am I calling you James? Anthony, just at the end there as well. It's interesting what you said, that some people worry about what they've got maybe isn't valuable, but I think what everybody has to say is valuable. And even if they're only saying to themselves, because as Emma, there's me expecting all of my content to be consumed by the entirety of LinkedIn. And unfortunately, or fortunately, tongue in cheek, it's not. But put your content out there. Don't worry too much about it. You have something valuable to say. The key bit, Anthony, is for folks to get started as well. So look, massive knowledge bombs in there. Notice, Emma, I learned that phrase from you a little while ago. Massive knowledge bombs in there for everyone. I hope you enjoyed this third Thursday. Please do connect with all of the panels and the experts here. There's folks here who sell some of the services you might want to buy and some of that coaching and mentorship, and put out huge amounts of value all the time that you can consume at your leisure. Until the next third Thursday, thank you so much. Emma, what did I forget to say at the end?
I think you got it. We've got another episode scheduled next third Thursday. So we'll see you everybody next month.
All righty. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.